Good afternoon. It's time for another installment of Heritage and History. I'm Maureen Taylor. I'm known as the Photo Detective, and you can find me on social media and also listen to my personal podcast, The Photo Detective. I'm all about family photos and family history. And my co-host is...
I'm Amy Johnson Crow. I have a website and blog at amyjohnsоncrow.com, and I am the host of Generations Cafe podcast.
Terrific. So our format is we discuss topics in the genealogy world or things that we're reading, news that we're heard, what else? Websites or apps that we've come across.
All sorts of good stuff.
We cover everything. And because we use the Be Live platform, you can interact with us. So if you have a question and you see this on your Facebook feed, you can just type that question right in underneath the video and we can answer it as we're live. So, Amy, should we start with books today while we're waiting for everyone to get sort of...
You know me, I'm always up for talking about books. I just started reading. Just started reading Inheritance by Danish Shapiro. It's kind of funny. I had it on pre-order and it was delivered to my Kindle the day it came out, and I'm just now getting around to reading it. But oh, what a story!
I think I have to read it.
What a story! Yeah, it's not a spoiler for me to tell this because it's basically in the summary. She does a DNA test, like so many of us have. She just sent in her spit and did that whole thing, and discovered that the man she knew as her father was not her father. Yeah. So
one of those things.
Yeah, one of those things. But she's a beautiful writer. I mean, it's a wonderful. I mean, it's hard to read, just the emotions of it, but she does it, and she's just such a good writer. It's a good read, but it's also a reminder to all of us who are either thinking about taking a DNA test or who are trying to convince someone to take a DNA test that, we have to go into this realizing that there could be surprises and what happens when there are. So.
Right. And there can be surprises at any point in the family tree.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be, your parent that you knew as your parent was not your biological parent, but finding out that a grandparent is different, or oh, by the way, I guess I have an uncle that I never knew about before. All sorts of things can pop up. So I do think that we need to be aware of that. And I think it also speaks to when you're trying to convince someone to take a DNA test and they say no, we need to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason. It's, we can present why we want them to take it, what we're hoping to find from it, but ultimately it has to be their decision.
Right. It's a complicated issue these days, as we know.
It is.
There are more and more editorials written about people who don't want to know the results, to people finding non-paternity events in different places in their family tree, there's just all kinds of things that the DNA tests are being used for that I'm not sure in the very beginning anyone ever really thought about that.
Right. I think that in the beginning, a lot of people were thinking, oh, this is great for adoptees. And it is.
And it is.
But I don't think that many people really thought through just how common it is. And I don't want to say that it's in every family, but I think that we're kind of finding that this is more common than we realized. And both Blaine Bettinger and Roberta Estes, just in the last 2-3 weeks, have both had articles talking about how do we talk about these surprises and how do we approach, what sort of mindset do we have going into it? Blaine's post, I thought, was pretty spot on his take on it was, can we please stop making the milkman joke?
Right. I mean, it is a joke, but it's not a joke.
It isn't a joke. And there are so many things, and we may never know what really happened. We may not ever know if it was even consensual. Let's be honest about that.
Exactly.
So let's be adults about this. And let's talk about the reality, and let's take out the shaming. Let's take out the the shame, the stigma, the joking. Let's just talk about it.
Well,
I think the more we can talk about the reality of it, I think the better that we can deal with it when we do have it happen in our DNA results.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just never know. I mean, several years ago, I mean, I'm a tailor. We've been tailors for 200 years. Nobody matches in the Taylor surname. I got a little note from the Taylor DNA group that said, perhaps you need to look a little further afield for a match. So it's at least 200 years, but it could be something as simple as a name change.
Yeah, it could be. It doesn't have to be in something like that. It doesn't have to be. And can we just stop using the phrase non-paternal event? Honestly, I hate that phrase. I don't know what I want to use instead, but to me, it's definitely a paternal event.
Right.
There is something going on there. But getting back to, we don't know exactly what. I don't know. I've never liked the phrase non-paternal event. But to your point, it could be something just like he's changed towns and he's starting a new life and he adopted a new name.
It's all possible.
It is.
It is all possible. Right. Well, I'll keep looking.
Yeah.
Should we get all the drama out of the way in the beginning? We've got the DNA drama. All right. The book I'm reading is super nerdy, but it is like a detective thriller. It's called Lost Gutenberg, and it's about the number 45 Gutenberg Bible. So there are only so many that were ever printed.
Yeah.
And this is one woman's hunt. There are only 48 in existence. And it took her 40 years to find this Bible. And this is the story of not only the printing of it, which is just cool from an early printing thing, but also what's happening in the rare book world. But also it's the history of the book. And for me, with the photographs, I'm always like, every photograph not only tells a story, but is a story.
Right.
There's something that's happened to this photo along the way. This is the story of a book.
Cool.
Lost Gutenberg. And
Lost Gutenberg.
It goes pretty quickly. It's like, so there's a genealogist here in Massachusetts, well, now not in Massachusetts, but in Massachusetts, who last year read 52 books in 52 weeks. Actually, he read more than 52 books.
Yeah.
And so I know him, and I talked to him at this recent New England conference, and I was like, all right, Michael, here's the thing. I'm taking your challenge. And I am nowhere near 52, but I have been reading like a fiend. Like every night I set time aside now just to read something I haven't done in a really long time.
Yeah, I've started to do the same thing. I kind of fell out of the reading habit. And like you say, it's a matter of making the time to do it and getting the brain to do other things.
Other than social media.
Yeah. I mean, we love social media.
We do.
Usually.
Facebook Live for social media. But let's talk about some more drama first, and then we'll get to some fun stuff.
Okay.
F&W Media, of which I am still considered a contributing editor to Family Tree Magazine, filed for bankruptcy, I don't know, a month and a half or 2 months ago.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Right. What happens when a company goes bankrupt is all of their debts, all the checks that they've written in the last, near the bankruptcy no longer have to be paid. And this is an event that has rippled through the genealogy community.
Mm-hmm.
I know lots of genealogists, many of the genealogists that all of you listeners know. We will never see money that is owed to us, and we're not sure what the future is. They are trying to sell the book division, and they're entertaining bids on buying the book division, and I think all those bids have to be in by May 15th. And there's somewhere between $100 million and $500 million in debt.
Yeah. I think we should clarify, though, that it isn't just the genealogy division. F&W owns a ton of publications. I mean, they have all sorts of different crafting publications, crafting, quilting, painting.
Right.
You know, you name it. It isn't just in the family history space. I think we should be
right. It's a huge, F&W Media is a huge company. They gobbled up other companies at a pretty rapid rate, and now they find themselves pretty much out of cash. And the staff is pretty thin, I think, at this point. So, and that makes me sigh. I've worked with them for 19 years.
Yeah. Yeah. From things that I've read from a business analysis standpoint, that the company, and again, this is talking about the overall, F&W as a whole, not the genealogy division of it, but looking at F&W as a whole, kind of a perfect storm. A perfect storm of, how to bring your business to the brink of bankruptcy, that they gobbled up small press publications.
Yes, they did.
They didn't integrate well into digital.
Right.
And they incurred a lot of debt and didn't have a strong business plan on how to really leverage the change of how people are consuming media. So
it's a disaster from all fronts.
It sure looks like it.
Yeah, it is. And someone just shared a Wikipedia link on F&W in the comments for this live broadcast. So if you're interested in learning more about F&W, I have to say that I had a really good relationship with them. They published a lot of my books. I really was affiliated with them for 19 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much thinking that relationship is over at this point. Not really sure.
I also have a relationship with them, not nearly as long or as deep as yours. I did a couple of webinars probably 3 or 4 webinars for them. Wrote a few magazines, filled in for a brief period, filled in on their social media team on the genealogy side of things. But it's sad to see a company who had such a strong history, and they were well regarded in the various spaces, not just genealogy, but I know their quilting publications. I loved them.
Right. They used to have a whole scrapbooking line. They bought up some of the scrapbooking companies. One of our listeners, Deborah, wants to know if there's any likelihood that someone else might take over the Family Tree magazine side of things. And right now, the whole thing is up in the air.
Yeah.
I know I was hoping to find an attorney to help with this issue, and bankruptcy attorneys, you have to find one in Delaware, which is where the company is incorporated, but it's very expensive.
Yeah. And also, it isn't like somebody can just go up to whoever is leading the genealogy side of it and say, hey, I want to publish, or I want to purchase the magazine from you. All of that has to be approved by the bankruptcy court.
That's right. That's right.
And the bankruptcy court might just say, you know what, it's going to be better off for all of the debt holders if we just liquidate the assets, and selling it may not be an option.
that might not be a bad thing for all of us. Actually, Nicole wants to know what happens to the copyright on the books after bankruptcy. And Nicole, that's a very good question.
It's a very good question.
That's a very good question. None of us appear to have bankruptcy clauses in our publishing contracts. And I'm not sure why that is, but I'll never sign it.
Do they become orphan works?
I don't know. But I'll never sign another contract without a bankruptcy clause.
Yeah. Or just self-publish and you keep all the rights
yourself. Pretty much. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about more fun things.
Yeah.
I wanted to alert everyone, if they hadn't already seen my little video that I posted over the weekend, that Ancestry.com has some new features. And one of the things I discovered when I was learning about the new features, one is messaging. You're going to actually be able to see who's online and when and all that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to see if someone actually gets your message, like a texting format. And then
I was sitting down for that one.
Right. And then profile. I discovered that I had never really set up my Ancestry.com profile. I had been so intent upon researching the tree and setting up the tree, that I had never set up my profile.
Yeah. And I think that new profile is also confusing people because there's two different views in there.
Public and private.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you see your tree versus or not your tree, but how you see your profile versus how others see your profile. And people aren't quite grasping that concept.
You have to click the little beta in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, but even then, there are two different views. There's your view, and then there's the public view. And I think that a little bit more education needs to go around.
Let's see what they're going to do with it, because this is all beta.
Oh yeah, it's going to be changing.
Lots and lots of beta, like the tree tags are beta. Yeah. Lots of things are beta.
I love the tree tags.
You know what? I finally turned on all the beta options on Ancestry. At the toolbar at the top, there's a place where you can click extras for anyone that doesn't know that. And it says betas. So I just clicked all the betas. I'm like, bring it on. Let me try them. But the tree tags are pretty cool because now I can say that this is my tree, my working tree. That I haven't verified everyone on the tree, but I can actually say which people I have verified and then the ones that are working links. So as a fun aside, when I went up to the New England Regional Conference 2 weeks ago, I went to the cemetery where my third great grandmother was buried in New Hampshire. Now, they were living in Rhode Island, and somehow, I mean, I've been looking for her forever. And a few years ago, I found her, but buried in New Hampshire.
Well, that's
I know.
unusual.
There's a whole Taylor family plot up there in this massive cemetery in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I mean, the thing goes as far as the eye can see and beyond. And I went up there.
Are they really Taylors?
Yes. They are really Taylors. And so I went up there and I was driving with, I don't know if all of you know, Michael Leclerc, who specializes in French Canadian genealogy. You know Michael, don't you? Right. So between the two of us, I had the map of the cemetery on my phone, and we would go through the cemetery and I would call out a name and Michael would look on Find a Grave to get a location. And so it took us maybe an hour, I think, but we finally found the plot. And then the question is, who bought the plot because they didn't have any money. And it's a 16-person plot, it looks like. It's massive. There's all these other Taylors buried in there. And this confirms what the research I'd been doing. I was like, I think that these people are related. So now I'm off and running lots of things.
Yeah, you typically don't have just random people buried in the family plot. Typically.
But the first gravestone I stumbled across, so I'm walking in the cemetery and we're in the proprietor section, which is the oldest section. I'm walking, trying to get our bearings and seeing how far the cemetery extends. And thank God it was a nice day, cold but nice. And I stopped and looked at the stone to my left, and it was George Fishley from the Last Muster book.
Are you kidding?
I am not kidding you. There was this massive monument to George Fishley, and I stopped and I actually said, "Hey, George, How you doing? Did you really want me to visit? Are you trying to tell me thank you? But
He did. He wanted you to stop and visit.
I'm happy to visit with you, but could you help me find these stones? This is why I'm here. I'm not here to visit you, George. But it was very, very funny. I mean, I had no idea he was buried up there.
Oh, that's wild.
I know, it was one of those, psychic roots moments. It's like, wandering for, 20 minutes and I stop and there's George.
And there's George.
There's George
That's
Fishley.
Funny.
Let's see. We have a comment from Paula who says that her great grandmother lived nearly her entire life in the area of the Dallas, Oregon. A year before she died, she remarried. Upon her death, her new husband had her buried in the family plot over the border in Washington State. Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
That can definitely happen.
I found something kind of like that not too long ago. I found that my third great grandmother, as far as I could tell, she lived her entire life down in Lawrence County, Ohio, which is all the way down on the Ohio River. That's like 4 counties south of me. And I could never find her death record, couldn't find where she was buried. I happened to follow a hint on Ancestry a while back, and it's like, wait a minute, I think this is her. She's buried here in Columbus.
How'd she get there?
I don't know. I need to figure it out. I don't know if maybe she was living up here with a child or a grandchild and she died up here and they just buried her up here. I don't know, but it's definitely her. It's like, okay.
You never know, right?
You never know.
No.
And people pop up in strange places.
They do. I've applied to be a DAR member. I finally found a DAR line, Patriot line in my family after years and years of looking. And we're working on the application. And there's this distant guy in the early 1800s, and he's buried nowhere near the rest of the family. So now it's like, well, why did you die? And are you buried up there in Tewksbury, which is quite a long way from where he was from in Taunton.
And why is your person from Rhode Island buried in New Hampshire?
They lived there for a very short period of time. Her family was from Newington, New Hampshire, which used to be part of Portsmouth, I believe. So it's right over the river. And then she met her husband up there, and then they lived in Newburyport, Massachusetts, just over the Massachusetts line for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And so, but I still don't understand if they even transported the body up there, how many other bodies did they transport? Because some of these other people that are buried there also died here.
That's wild.
How could people with no money at all afford to transport bodies unless they're just memorial stones? But then where are the remains?
And then where are they? Yeah.
Right. It's a mystery.
Interesting.
It's just another mystery, right?
And add to the pile.
Add to the pile. There's always another mystery.
I know.
Nicole wants to make a comment, and she says she has a fourth great grandmother who is buried 10 miles away from where they were living in Scotland, 4 days after her son was baptized in another church closer to home.
That is weird.
I know.
Why would? Maybe it was just cheaper to pay the sexton at that other cemetery.
Don't know.
Yeah, that's weird.
Drive us crazy as genealogists, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Amy, what else do you got?
Oh, what else do I got? I don't really have a whole lot right now. I took the weekend off. I did.
What a novel idea that is.
I know. I took the weekend off and spent time with some of my living relatives. Now, I went with my daughter, my sister, and my niece, and we went to a quilt camp. Well, my sister and I were quilting, and the two girls were crocheting. But yeah, so again, using different parts of our brain.
I just came from needlepoint.
Ooh.
You know what I like about needlepoint?
That you're stabbing things 1,000 times?
It's so hard. I can't concentrate on anything but that stitch I'm trying very hard to master. I ignore everything else in the world. And it's so restful.
I used to do counted cross stitch. And I saw a sampler not too long ago, and I'm thinking about actually making it, saying the beauty of counted cross stitch is proof that you can stab something 10,000 times. It's like for those days.
Brings us just a little bit closer to our ancestors.
Yep.
Many of which did needlework.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they had to. I mean,
they did.
You didn't just go on Amazon and buy a new blanket. You made it, and if you wanted it to look pretty, you had to embellish it yourself.
I have a friend whose mother used to crochet with fine thread, the most beautiful tablecloths.
Yeah.
And she would make them for everyone in the family. And I said to my friend, I was like, oh my God, look at what and she did it without a pattern. She'd done so many of them, she didn't need a pattern. Oops.
Ooh, I think we just lost Maureen.
No, I'm here.
Maureen, are you still there?
Yes. I'm back. And you're back, and I think we're still live.
Yay!
It's been one of those days. Oh my God.
Oh, technology is great when it works.
I know. All right.
Okay.
So I went to the local flea market on Sunday and read this letter. And I do not collect documents. I only collect photographs. And hopefully you guys can see us, because they're saying, I guess we can talk amongst ourselves. You're back in live. Great. Thank you, Chad. So I looked at this letter, and it was amongst an entire box of letters. And this one is dated. It has a place on it. It says September 14th, 1794. Ooh. And in it, the young woman is writing to her parents. And she's talking about how they just bought land and they're going to move, and how successful the husband's business is, and how she really, really wants to get down there to see them. But because her husband's so busy, they don't think the child will travel well. And then it got to a point where it was so heartbreaking. What does she say? Oh, and of course, I'm standing at the booth, right?
Right.
With the vendor. And I'm just like, dear father and mother, I once more take pen in hand, blah, 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 blah. I'm just reading aloud, just like real time. And the vendor comes up to me and he goes, can you actually read that stuff? I'm like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And you're going to make me a good deal for this.
Yeah.
And I cannot bear to think of you not coming to see me before we move, since I can't come down, and have always flattered myself that we should come down before we remove. Please remember us to our friends.
Oh,
I had to have it.
There's
a whole collection of them, though. This is the only one I could afford. There's another one where the woman supposedly is suicidal, and she goes on and on saying that, that next time I see him, I'm going to check for it, because a friend said, I want that.
Yeah.
And she says, it's not my fault. Ruth Woods blamed me. I'm innocent. I didn't do it. And it's got a date and a place and whatever. And you read it and you're like, who's Ruth?
Yeah.
What did she do?
Yeah.
So this is signed, even full signature. Thankful Lapham.
Tell me you have researched these people already.
I'm working on it. I can't find her.
You can't find Thankful?
I can't find Thankful.
Oh, no.
I've got someone who might be, a relative. And I'm going to donate the letter. I decided that because I don't collect letters. I just really love this one, and I love the story. And of course, there is a whole story here. They're going to build a house, and they have sheep and a cow, and it's all right here. This whole woman's story, and on the back, because it was all folded up, of course, is the name of the man that was receiving it. Right. So I think they might have been Quakers, and that's why I'm having a little difficulty.
Yeah.
but I couldn't leave it. Yes, there are names on it, Deborah. That's why I bought it.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
no good photo finds recently.
Yeah.
And I've got plenty of those, thousands of them.
I was going to say, I think you still have a few photos to go through.
I have thousands.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt. I'm actually trying to figure out what to do with them all. That's what I have on my list to talk about today. Do any of you have things that you want Amy and I to talk about or touch on? It's in the news. I don't think none of us want to really think about the church burning in France.
Oh. You know, after I saw that and heard that it didn't appear that there were any, that there wasn't a loss of life or anything, is it terrible that my first thought was, oh my gosh, I hope their records have been digitized?
Right. Well, the records aren't at the church, probably.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It turns out that that some of them are actually on microfilm through Family Search.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. That Family Search had microfilmed some of them, but it goes to show we need to be aware of that. That microfilming or digitizing, it isn't just a matter of making it easy to use the records. It's a matter of having another copy of the records. So when something happens, we still have at least the images to work from.
Right. Or those, 3 churches, I think, in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. The 3 churches in Mississippi, and who knows about churches or organizations or whatever in the Midwest where they've had horrible, horrible flooding. Water and paper, not a good combination.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Things get lost every day, which is why this little 1794 letter is so precious.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I know. He had a whole stack of them from this family. He said the Smith family of.
You're trying to find the Smith family, really?
It's Gloucester, Rhode Island. Smith isn't as bad as Brown around here.
Okay.
If you have a Brown family in Rhode Island, it's tough. Smith, maybe not so much. And they're living in Gloucester, Rhode Island. So
okay, so you do have them in a place. That's
I've got them in a place, and I've got the connection in Massachusetts where the daughter was living. I just have to connect them.
Yeah.
And then she mentions her Uncle Windsor, and I think the name of her husband. So I've got a lot to go on.
You got a lot to go on there. Can't wait to see what you find out. What comments do we have?
Oh, we have comments. So Deborah's saying that it's not quite as bad as we think. The roof and spire were destroyed, but much of the interior has survived.
Yeah.
Paula is saying, now this is not letting me share the comments. Oh, be live. You're on my short list.
Yeah.
She says she's been dabbling in photo restoration with the Microsoft Photo Gallery retouching tool. Now she's trying to learn Microsoft Paint feature. And she wants to know if there are any tutors in Columbus. And she's asking you specifically.
I don't know anybody specifically in Columbus that handles that kind of stuff.
Lynda.com.
Well, yeah, I was going to say lynda.com or YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, those would help, Paula.
What was the name? Oh, it left me. I can see their logo. They used to do tutorials on using Photoshop. I'll have to think on that. If I remember it, hopefully I will. I'll post it in the comments later. What was the name? I'll come up with it later. I'll make a note to myself.
Thank you all for joining us. Now, next month, we did not come up with a date yet because I'm traveling and then I'm at NGS.
Yeah.
So
date to be determined.
Date to be determined. We have to put our calendars together and go, oh, my goodness. Yeah, the calendar's looking pretty scary.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for this installment of Heritage in History with Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, and Amy Johnson-Crow of Generations Cafe. And we will see you next month.
All right.
Bye.